SiriusXM NBA Radio, Forbes Sporting News NBA writer Mitch Lawrence joins me right now to take a look at the top storylines in the association. Mitch, welcome back, pal.
Mike, how you doing? All right? How'd you enjoy the All-Star festivities and the All-Star break? Okay?
Am I the only person that didn't think Fergie was awful?
You know what? People go crazy about that stuff. I mean, I heard it. It went viral, all the backlash. And, yeah, I mean, everybody's got an opinion about it. A lot of people didn't like it. It really didn't bother me.
It didn't bother me at all.
One. But, everybody now today, it's all the peanut gallery. Everybody has to weigh in on what they think. But like I also said, Adam Silver, he fixed the All-Star Game. Now he has to fix the national anthem, and everybody will be happy.
Yeah, All-Star Game, I mean, it had some more intrigue finally for us down here with Embiid in it. I thought he handled himself well. Would have liked to seen Simmons out there rather than like a Dragic who looked like a fish out of water.
Well, I mean, not everybody played great. The only negative for me about the game, very, very few negatives. They competed. Guys wanted to play for the first time in a while. The Sunday event was actually better than Saturday. Usually been the Saturday dunk, and the game had gotten so bad it was an embarrassment for the league. They had to make these changes, but very few negatives. I didn't like the fact that Jimmy Butler chose to sit out and rest. That's the last thing an NBA player needed to do after all that the league had done for the players in terms of helping them with the schedule. I didn't want to see that. But otherwise, I thought, and the way it ended, it was great how Steph Curry couldn't get a shot off, so you saw that they were trying to play some defense. So the whole thing was good. Not everybody played great, but at least people tried this time.
Yeah, Mitch Lawrence with us here on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline. All right, storyline second half, Eastern Conference. We got Toronto at the top, Boston 2, and there's a big gap from 3 down. So Toronto, Boston, they're your top 2 teams in the East?
Well, we'll see what the Cavs do. A lot depends on since they overhauled their team, which was a brilliant move. They had to do it. As their GM, Kobe Altman, said, they were on a slow death march. And, of course, LeBron was leading that funeral procession because he wasn't invested at all. He wasn't playing hard. As a matter of fact, Mike, I was watching the All-Star Game thinking LeBron's trying harder here than he did when the Cavs lost 13 out of 20 with Isaiah Thomas and Jay Crowder. So let's see what happens with the Cavs. We all know what they're about when LeBron plays great and he wants to win. And they have a new team for him, and so we'll see about that. But it looks like Toronto's going to nail down. I mean, they are committed to winning and being the number 1 team in the East. Boston's kind of shaky here lately, and we'll see if they can rebound over the last 25 games or so. But the top 3 teams, you know who they are. Be interesting to see where the Sixers finish. A lot of people are thinking, maybe they can move up. Really, Miami could fall out. Detroit, I don't know about. It's not a great bottom last couple teams in the East, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. I think Philly. The fact that Philly has a pretty easy schedule the rest of the way. Not saying that we're going to give them anything because they haven't earned anything yet. They're too young, but that bodes well for them. I noticed that a lot of it's very heavy on the road where they don't do great, but their defense has been very good since January 1st, number 1 defense in the league. So at least taking that on the road, it gives yourself a chance to win.
Yeah, 16-27 against losing records. The rest of their 27 for Philly, they won 5 in a row, 11 straight at home there, 30-25. So they got a chance with that schedule to move. I want to ask you about Washington because coming in, they made that run last year but didn't really do much in the offseason. So Wall's been out. They've won 7 out of 10 without him. So where's Washington in your mind?
Well, it's a very strange thing to, play as well as they've played, especially offensively without John Wall. Their assist totals without John Wall are almost Warrior-esque. The way they're passing the ball, like Bradley Beal said, everybody eats. I tend to think, though, in the long run, they're not going to be, they can't be this good without John Wall, despite the fact that, with him they have some internal issues, obviously, chemistry-wise and stuff, but they're a better team. You'd have to think. I would still expect, though, they'll be around now. I don't know how far they're going to fall, but look, he's out. You've got Giannis Antetokounmpo, who's been basically telling people his knee hurts. Is that going to be something that crops up here in the last 20, 25 games for Milwaukee? If it does, they're going to take a fall. So we'll see. But Washington, I think, we all, agree that they're a better team with John Wall. But the way things have played out so far, it's certainly been a surprise without him.
Well, playoff-wise, you need a bucket, in the playoffs. You got to have someone that can score. We saw that with them last year. Someone's got to score a bucket, and the problem with him in Game 7 was he couldn't score the bucket.
Last 19 minutes against Boston, Game 7, didn't score 0 from 11, and then he complained after the game. Instead of basically owning it as the face of that franchise for Washington, he basically said, we don't have a bench. Well, they still don't have a great bench. You've heard that maybe they're interested in Derrick Rose. I don't know how Derrick Rose can help them. It's still going to come down to, and it always does, it comes down to your stars. For Toronto, it's going to come down to Lowry and DeRozan. I don't care how many great young players they have now off the bench. These big playoff moments for these teams has to come down to what can your veteran guys who are your number one players, your highest paid players, this is where they make their legacy in the postseason. What's John Wall going to do this year? What's Bradley Beal going to do this year? Otto Porter is the number 3 guy. Beyond that, I don't know. Do I have a lot of faith in the Washington Big Two? Really, no, because they haven't been past the second round. Can they step up and produce this year? Yeah, we'll give them a shot, but they have to go out there and prove it.
Mitch Lawrence, SiriusXM NBA Radio on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline. Over in the West, it's similar. 2 teams, and then the big drop-off from 3 down. Western Conference not as deep this year as it's been in years past. Not as many intriguing matchups, it seems like.
Well, the thing we're all looking for from the West, we know the top 2 teams, and who knows, Houston might win the West. I mean, that'd be unbelievable for them to all of a sudden knock the Warriors off in terms of the regular season. I think that's something we'll watch. We're watching what Cleveland's going to do down the stretch. Then you got to watch how this number 1 seed is in the West. But to me, the big story obviously is San Antonio. I don't know what the deal is with Kawhi Leonard. He's only played 9 games. Obviously, he's not there. LaMarcus Aldridge, he only played 4 minutes in the AllStar game because his knee is hurting. Remember, they held him out for a couple of games. So are they going to slip down? That would give Minnesota, obviously, a golden opportunity to even move up further. The teams that are competing for 7, 8, 9, you got to think that can Anthony Davis get New Orleans to the playoffs without DeMarcus Cousins? He's come out and said that he thinks that they would go to the finals if DeMarcus Cousins was there and he'd get to the playoffs. I mean, that is overstating the case. They're not that good. But maybe Anthony Davis, he's been a disappointment in a lot of respects. He's got to get that team to the playoffs. So they're going to have a drop-off. They've suffered without DeMarcus Cousins. Does that mean that the Clippers get in? I don't know. But the bottom 2, 3 teams in the West are not that good this year.
Oklahoma City's kind of the wild card there as a 5 right now with that threesome. I mean, do they give someone problems? Can they be a kind of a team that makes a run late in the year that they put it all? Can they put it all together and scare somebody?
I don't think they can, and it's only because they really. I mean, their big 3 is look. It could be very good. I think Westbrook is still low percentage shooting, mistake prone. Paul George has been, in the playoffs, he can have some big moments. He's also been a disappointment. But at the other end of the floor, defensively, where they miss Andre Roberson, they haven't done anything to fill that gap because he means a lot to them on their perimeter defense, getting out on pick and rolls, locking down on perimeter shooting. So that makes their defense a little bit weaker. And maybe a lot weaker. We'll see in the playoffs who they're matched up against. But obviously, going in, they're going to be the team everybody's looking at because there's so much riding on this playoff thing, or so it seems. I mean, I still think that when push comes to shove, Paul George will be a Laker. But if you buy into Paul George wants to see how deep they go in the playoffs and yada, 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 hey, maybe a deep run keeps him there for another year. We'll see. But Oklahoma City, obviously, if they play, I think, a great first-round matchup, obviously the premier matchup would be if they in Minnesota, let's say the Spurs somehow hang on to third, Mike, and you got Oklahoma City playing Minnesota in the first round. That would be a tremendous series.
It would be. And Minnesota was another team I asked you about. They're kind of the Sixers of the West over there, but they're a little further up. They added Butler. They got Towns, Wiggins. I mean, that team there, I'm wondering if they could be a conference finals team yet. Are they ready for that?
No, I don't think so. I think, look, this is the first time they're going to make the playoffs, Towns and Wiggins. This is a franchise that has the longest playoff drought, I believe, of anybody else, going back, 12, 13 years, if not more, 14 years. So Towns and Wiggins, they haven't been winners yet. They've been tremendous talents, but they're not winning NBA players at this point in terms of getting their team to a playoff. Now, the Jimmy Butler thing has helped. He's been their lead guy, their alpha, and they're going to be a tough you would think they'll be a tough team. Now, offensively, here's the strange thing about Minnesota. You would think a Thibodeau team, Tom Thibodeau is a very good defensive coach. They'd be a good defensive team. They're not. They struggle at that end of the floor. As you've seen, they're very, like the Sixers, they're a very good home team. They have trouble on the road. I think they've lost 11 of 12, and it's because their defense lets them down, which is pretty amazing because they have the players you would think. So I don't know what the problem is there in terms of them playing defense, but if they don't have that corrected over the last 20-odd games, they're not going to get past the first or second round.
Yeah, 24-7 at home, 12-18 when Minnesota goes on the road. Same Philly, 18-10 at home, 12-15 15 on the road. Those young teams have an issue here. I know there's 27 games. We still got a season here, but LeBron's name comes up a lot. Everybody has their decision on where he may or may not go. What is your feel over the stretch run here? Has Cleveland done enough to lure him to stay there?
I don't know if that, for him, is really an issue. I don't know if, he's looking to see, hey, do I have enough? First of all, they haven't replaced Kyrie Irving. That's the big problem there. They made all these changes, and, they got younger and they got a little more athletic on the perimeter. And, they've got guys who are happy to be there now. They don't have guys like Isaiah Thomas, who was miserable on and off the court, and Jay Crowder, specifically those two. But I don't know if LeBron's of the mindset where he's got to look to see if this is the team that, I'm going to stay because of. Did you hear his comments after the game in Los Angeles? I mean, he raved about L.A. he thought it was tremendous how they put on a show, how it's a great place for stars, how his family enjoyed it. You're sitting there hearing all this stuff thinking, oh, boy, they've got they're going to have a meeting. We know that. The Lakers are going to meet with them. We know that because they've got a couple of big salary slots open. So I don't know if he's going to go to L.A., but it's obviously a situation where he and Paul George could land there together. I don't think there's any doubt about that. You still have to think about that as a possibility. And look, in terms of how good Cleveland can be, like I said, and I've said this from day one, they made that trade where they broke up that team. They had a championship contender team. You could argue they aren't going to beat Golden State, but with Kyrie Irving, they had done it in the past. Okay, it wasn't against Durant, but you figured they could. They were always strong enough to get out of the East. They were 36-5 over the last 3 playoff years against Eastern competition because LeBron and Kyrie were really the guys who could make something out of nothing late in these playoff games, and they were dependable, reliable scorers. Now they're down to LeBron. I don't know if I'm going to say that Kevin Love can step into that number 2 spot. I don't know if George Hill can be that guy. So I think they're a weaker team. They're more vulnerable. They're certainly more vulnerable, looks like, in the East. But getting back to your original thought, I think that's what a lot of people are thinking about, that this is going to influence LeBron's decision one way or the other. I don't know. There are people who will tell you LeBron already thinks that his legacy is in Cleveland instead. He doesn't have to stay around to win them another title.
I would probably have to agree with that. You bring a title to that place, you should have a bronze statue on every street corner.
Well, he should have a street named after mine.
No doubt. But they remind me of the 2000 Sixers with Iverson and their merry men, just all role players, and LeBron. Go out there and score all you can, and all the other guys kind of fit into their roles.
Well, they got more talent. I mean, Iverson didn't have a Kevin Love type who he played with, and and Iverson obviously wasn't LeBron James, who can get you to the finals year in and year out. But this Cleveland thing, we knew that they had to do something. They made a great move. Plus, they kept that Brooklyn pick. That's the big thing for them. You have to take your hat off to Kobe Altman because that was the thing. If they've got to rebuild, now, first of all, if they lose LeBron James, it's over there, basically. You're not going to get another player like that. You're not going to get him back again, so that's going to set your franchise back. But at least you have this Brooklyn pick, and maybe you can turn that into something down the road.
All right, Mitch Lawrence, SiriusXM NBA Radio, Forbes, the sporting news here, talking a little NBA as that second half of the season starts tomorrow night. You can hear Sixers and Bulls right here on 97.3 ESPN. Give him a follow at Mitch_Lawrence. 27 games down the stretch they come. Thanks, Mitch.
Thanks, Mike. Good to talk to you.